why don't we do a quick round, like short introductions, like say who you are, where you are, what you do maybe, and actually I would like to begin this with sharing a dream. So I thought if you feel like it, you can share a dream you had recently or a long time ago, or you can also just make one up, because maybe that's what dreams just are. Maybe we just make them up anyway, so it doesn't matter if you're asleep or not. Let's see. Well, I can go first. Maybe that'll make it a little easier. And yeah, so my name is Robin Meier. I'm an artist. I work with sound a lot. I studied composition, so I'm a trained composer. And I work with many different media, as it's called. I work with a lot of live organisms. For example, I have a composition installation for live mosquitoes, where 3 live mosquitoes sing Drupad. So the mosquitoes hear a voice and they tune into that voice and they sing along with the same melody, because mosquitoes, when they hear each other, they will tune into each other, meaning that they flap their wings at the same speed, producing the same musical note. And building on that behavior, I created this installation. But I also work with birds or a lot with computers. I studied electronic music and I got interested in AI very early on. I was doing stuff with neural networks back in like 2003 or so, and it was considered sort of ridiculous because the early hype from the, I don't know, like 60s, 70s and later had passed, and before the big wave we're in right now. And I was always interested in how these can come together, this work with living beings outside and with the natural world around us, and the same time the world inside the computers and the world inside our heads and bodies, and how these are connected or are disconnected, or maybe actually the same thing. Let's see what we'll come up with. So that was a very long introduction. Sorry about that. Anyway, let me share a little dream. So where is it? It's a 2-part dream. So I will read you the first part. So I'm sorry, I prepared this. I have a little dream journal. So yesterday I was going through my little journal and found this one, which I thought would be a good introduction for this conversation we're going to have today. So I'm going to do the first part, and then I'll read the second part in the end when we did the tour. It's a dream I had 2 years ago. I was in Colombo. I was preparing a performance there with crows. We were feeding crows and making music with crows and for crows, and the crows would learn to recognize us and come meet us every day at the same location of the festival, and was quite intense and nice. And I think I just arrived like maybe the night before or so. So with the jet lag, your sleep is you go like in and out of the dream state. And so I had this funny dream. I had a dream of impossible starling murmuration. I was on the piazza in front of Termini, which is the Rome main railway station in Rome. That's where I was living at the time. So I was on the piazza in front of that huge railway station, looking up. The sky was full of starlings, a giant flock forming a huge cloud covering the entire sky, but with a tunnel, a hole piercing through it. At a slight angle, but almost horizontal, it looked like those tunnels at the end of which there's a light, a passage, a gateway, something alien. At another moment, the starlings transformed into a material like silver chloride colloids, something that's in suspension right in front of you, like little particles in suspension in some sort of gel. And the particles were in there, but they were visible, but when they changed their direction, they would become invisible. So they were like visible and invisible at the same time. Like sometimes you get that with like a school of fish underwater, or when they're in the right angle, you hardly see them, and then they turn, and then you have this silvery shape appearing. And yeah, so that's this dream fragment. Who wants to go next?
That's a pretty vivid dream to have. Like,
yeah,
dream or movie.
Sort of, yeah. It's a bit like a movie, you know. But yeah, it was strange. There was something very visual about it, the way I experienced it. It was like it was actually happening inside my eye. And I was fascinated with starling flocks, starling murmurations. You know, there are these huge, huge
Yeah.
murmurations of thousands and thousands of birds, and they move around and they create these crazy shapes, like stuff, like crazy shapes in the sky. And there are a lot of those in Rome, so I was quite obsessed with them.
Beautiful.
Actually, in Milano, if you ever happen to pass Milano around sunset, when you walk out of the station, it's the most incredible, spectacular show of birds.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just saw that now, and you know, I've been living in Switzerland and out, of course, a long time, but it was only a few years ago that I happened to walk out at that time in Milan, and I was blown away. So it's really,
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really spectacular. Yeah. I was in Rome. I was always waiting for the season in autumn and in spring when you have these flocks coming, and a lot of them make their nests around the railway station there too, like in Milano, and so you get these incredible shapes in the center of the city, and it's really crazy. So, what do you do, Katja? when you're not floating around in your otherworldly studio?
Around in my universe. Yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a visual artist. Also very multimedia. I create spaces, mainly video based. So either video installations or video sculptures. The video sculptures are the smaller sculptural, self-contained bodies of work. And it was funny for me to listen of what you do, because I heard so many similar topics that I'm actually working with myself in that field. My technique is a view of dancers. So I choreograph dancers in green screen studios. And then after, in post-production, I put them in videos and sculptural forms, as you can see behind me now. And my main topic is environment and this balance humans are creating on our own Mother Earth. I have made entire series of insects. So people are putting costumes, becoming insects that are then dancing in this bird's eye view, and after they're being put in realities.
Very cool.
The bee is sort of my main symbol for many, many, many years. Traveled the world with the bee manifesto, which, you know, sort of stands for me for a symbol for the whole, you know, environmental balance. Have no more, everything will fall apart, and I like to call out for these small little tiny creatures that are monumentally important.
That's great. Yeah. I've been beekeeping myself for a little while. It's really fascinating species.
Mm-hmm. And of course, they also communicate by dancing, and since that is the impulse of my messages, so that's I will share the bee manifesto later with you. And and speaking of dreams, that's actually sort of my practice is to create dreams to manifest. That's how I function. For example, last year in New York, we did the manifesto with the idea create a dream to manifest. And the way I create art is always sort of the first impulse is a dream, and then out of that grows the whatever reality I'm creating.
Cool. Do you remember any dream you could share?
Maybe I tell you the biggest dream right now. It's to build a sustainable community in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
So that's
like an ambition dream.
Yeah. That's quite down to earth.
But it's a dream. It starts with a dream. and then it starts to manifest.
Very cool. Thanks.
Cool. I think I can go next. I'm Jaya, and I really don't identify as any one thing, but I like space and the universe and cognition and consciousness, and got a bit obsessed with how people learn lately. And I think when COVID hit, my dreams went completely out of control. So I'm wondering about, the whole mass consciousness dream infiltration process. And I think my dreams have been infiltrated by a lot of other things right now. And I'm mostly dreaming about, I can't remember them, I don't keep a dream journal, but I have attended like sleep workshops and stuff like that to try to figure
sounds
that
amazing.
part out. Yeah.
What is a sleep workshop? Is it like a slump?
Yeah, no, like they'll put you to sleep in certain conditions and then like see what is the effect, kind of
cool
stuff.
That sounds amazing.
And I'm mostly dreaming about people right now, like just people, and then they come people from my life, people from my past life, but not like this life's past life. And yeah, excited.
Yeah, same here. Most dreams are about other people. I chose a dream which is quite peculiar for a starter. It's not the typical dream I have every year. And this was 2 years ago. I still like coming back to this one. But it's interesting what you say about the COVID dreams. I remember having a lot of very vivid dreams at the beginning of town here in Paris, because it was such a intense change and intense event. And it certainly had a huge effect on my dreams and
dream cycle.
Yeah, the quantity and intensity of the dreams, also the content. Do you think there's something like a COVID dream? Like you were talking about, like collective dreaming in a certain way. I thought that was a really interesting notion.
Yeah, I think like if there were a study done, something would come out. Like if they went and interviewed, most people and asked, something would, I don't know. Like I asked other people about whether their dreams got more intense, and most were like, yeah. So
yeah, I'm sure.
Robin,
yeah,
you got to do it, Robin. And then I'm coming and seeing the manifestation, maybe in a performance. Maybe you extract someone's dream.
Oh, we can all live it in our dreams, maybe. Oh, it's interesting. I mean, this collective dreaming thing, I think, is really, really fascinating. I got this book out of my library just like 5 minutes ago. I got an Italian copy of it by Jung, Man and His Symbols.
Yeah.
Well, this is all about this collective dream and the collective archetypes, right? So these archetypes which you can find across all continents and cultures, and I love the book just for the illustrations. I had it as a PDF for many years, and then I finally decided to get the paper version because it's just amazing, all the images. Every page has like 4 or 5 images, and I would highly recommend, if you can find it in a library somewhere or something, to check it out. It's there's this one page which is really amazing, because this page has, you see this?
What?
It has the bead dance, the waggle dance. I think Katja can explain to us the waggle dancing in a second, but it also has this, which fascinates me since about 10 years now. About 10 years ago, I came across a YouTube video of thousands of ants walking in a circle. I was filmed somewhere in the jungle. It was army ants in the Brazilian rainforest. And it's a strange phenomenon where ants, when they get cut off from their colony, they can't find their original pheromone trail anymore, and it happens on a flat surface when they don't have any other salient features in the landscape. And so they just walk more or less randomly, but then they come across their own pheromone trail, and after a few minutes, hours, they start like following their own pheromone trail in some kind of weird shape in the beginning, but then over time it gets like rounder and rounder, and then you'll have just like a disc of thousands of ants just going in circles and circles. It's really hypnotic and amazing to see. And it's also sad for the ants, because if it happens, most of them actually die. They can't get out of the circle. It's like it's called the ant circle of death, some people call it. And it's really fascinating because it's like visually stunning, and it's sad, and it's also interesting because this whole pheromone navigation skill of ants, it's such a much studied subject for like the collective intelligence of ants and the organization of ants, and then at the same time, this is the point where it breaks down. Also, it's like there's a bug in the
I think Facebook
software.
is reaching that point of the breakdown of the pheromone circle,
of so many things,
of all the human ants going in their own.
Facebook or elections or little concerts or religious events or
No, but do you think you could draw a parallel between that and the way the human mind works and the way we're sort of stuck on patterns, especially when it comes to traumatic events and your reaction to them after? And
surely.
Well,
go on.
The way you tend to follow certain trails in your neurons that have already been created, or certain patterns, because of what you're used to, or because of what you've learned.
I'm sure it does. I mean, that's, I think, maybe the subject of this room in a certain way. I mean, we're still at the introductions, but I think there's definitely a connection between thoughts, the patterns of thoughts in our minds, patterns in dreams, how they reoccur, how the patterns of a dream can correspond to patterns in real life on one level. But then I think there's also all these patterns outside in nature, the ants, the waggle dance of the bees, that are in a certain way like thoughts. And I'm jumping ahead now, but if we can reach like a discussion where we can think about how our thoughts in our minds are like thoughts happening outside in the world. And when I say thoughts happening outside in the world, that can be the flow of a river or the march of a colony of ants. Or I think that's maybe one of the main points I want to get to. Yeah. So Mitra, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I identify as an artist as well, from Chennai, and I'm training to be an art therapist. So I like to experiment with different modalities, is what they're called in art therapy. So I like to do a lot of theater, photography, self-portraits. Incidentally, I use a lot of insects in my self-portraits. I like to do that. I found some dead dragonflies and I stuck them on my face and just that kind of stuff. So and I feel really connected to nature and the mind, which is what drew me to this particular room that we're in.
And do you remember any dream recently?
Yeah, last night actually, and I found that so odd that I was attending this talk about birds, and I had this dream of this like very vivid image of a peacock flying over me, and then when it came this side, it turned into a peahen, this little white thing that couldn't fly with black speckles, and that's it.
Wow.
That's all I remember.
Beautiful. I like these dream fragments also. Sometimes they're so short, and then they're so full of imagery and
they're just visual. I don't know if they mean anything.
Yeah, interesting. I have seen peacock fly only about 2 years ago or so. I was kind of surprised. They seem so huge that I never imagined them flying. It's more like a giant hop, no?
Yeah.
Do they fly like
And I think only the males can fly. The female ones.
But do they fly like high up? Can they like properly fly, or?
I have no idea. It flew in my dream, so I don't know.
Yeah, like soaring.
Just sort of like gliding. Yeah.
Cool. That's a cool dream. Sumi, you're last.
I am last. Almost forgot I was also a participant in this.
You are.
But I guess for me, it's pretty like opposite of everyone because I, for once, feel very disconnected from nature because I've for like a year been so far away from it. Like I would have this intense desire to like go like touch barks of trees because I forget how it feels to like to touch plants and to touch leaves and to like hold mud and like feel mud under your feet because I've just been
Maybe
like
you should let everybody know where you live.
I live in Mumbai, like so it's completely it's like only buildings and only concrete and everything's always like in like eruption, like the earth is like erupting and they're always building or breaking and there's like the noise is always artificial. So there's a complete disconnect from it's like in my memory I remember what nature sounds like and what it feels like, but I don't really know anymore like in experientially what it feels like at all. So like a sound like and when I think about it, so I went downstairs yesterday from my office and there was a tree outside and I touched it, but all I got was like a lot of dust from the building on the tree bark. So it wasn't like the bark itself anymore. It was just like, I don't know, a supposition of something. It was an external layer. So that's always a separation. So yes, so I have been disconnected from the mind, from the nature in itself. So that makes you feel half, I think, like you can't completely connect with yourself. You're connected to one part of you, the other part's always wandering and like is always wants to escape in the search of nature, in the search of something. Like how like from here the moon feels really like far away, like no one, there are beautiful sunsets that happen even in the city but no one wants to look at it. Like I have a eighth floor balcony and I would call people in my office, say look at the sunset, they'll just be like, yeah, it's the sunset. I was like, no, look at it, like it's glorious, it's so beautiful, it's orange, it's a winter sunset. Like yeah, so it doesn't make a difference. So that kind of throws me off also sometimes to imagine that everyone here around me does not want, they talk about like, oh, we'll go on a trek, that's the only time we'll think about how the nature affects us, but how we are with anything around us, or we'll like keep succulents in our rooms or like try to make that one plant survive. But it's the disconnect that it's like almost like your body
I
feels
know the challenge.
from plants. It wants plants, but it cannot like hold on to it. Yeah. So I've been dreaming a lot about touching plants. Like it's just been holding trees and just like lying down on grass because like your mind empties out when you're on a field or when you're like surrounded by only foliage and no buildings and no people. So that's when like this constant like recurring dream where I just want to like escape and like just, oh my god, lie down under a tree and not see a building.
Yeah, is that actually a dream or a wish you
I
have?
think it's a wish manifested into a dream because like I want it so bad, I visualize it all the time. So I don't know the difference, whether it's like whether it's actually I dreamed it or I visualized it first. But I keep like seeing this thing continuously because I also have very erratic sleep schedules. So my dreams are like, I don't know, they're almost like projections of my own anxiety onto myself. It's that my surrounding guides my thoughts, and then my escape from that surrounding is my wishful dream thinking, I think. Yeah. I think it is.
It's interesting what you say about the disconnect between nature and when you live in a city like Mumbai or other humanized environments, and at the same time, I mean, those are nature too, no? It's just maybe more human nature.
More human nature. More, I don't know, I feel like there are a lot of, it's not there a lack of trees, there are trees outside my window, I see it, but I don't feel it. I can look at a plant, but it seems like another building to me. It doesn't look like a plant. It feels like it's there, but it's there because it had to be there. It doesn't have the independence or to grow and to be something of itself, to feel the plants, like to see a huge tree and you feel it, right? But this huge tree is just somehow someone has saved that tree from being uprooted and built a road around it. So that it hurts almost to see.
Mhm.
Like they're just holding on to the ends of their lives, and it's so dusty. It's like the trees are dusty. Why are
Mhm.
trees
Well,
dusty?
it sounds almost like you're talking about control also, no? It's like the nature you live in has been controlled and it can't express itself in the way it might want to or
Yeah,
could do it.
like to summarize, I would say it kind of comes down to the fact that I feel our relationship with nature has a lot to do with the well-being of our mind. I think the more
Mhm.
we are exposed or more we interact with the smaller, like the bee dance, right? Like that,
Mhm.
that's called a beekeeper's daughter. That the more you know about what the smaller like elements of the smaller things, the smaller parts of the universe which you experience yourself, like from like the flowering of a plant or like a seed falling, those sounds, those specific like notes, they affect your thinking and how far and wide your brain expands to accommodate those sounds, those new experiences and new not even new, how do I say, there's an emotional bobbing, like you have those notes that you wake up to. You wake up to a certain bird, or you wake up to a rustling of a certain tree. A tree rustles a certain way, and you know that it's
Mhm.
that particular set of trees, and you know where the location is even without seeing them, because that's your sound signatures. And here the sound signatures around me are so not plants, so not trees, so not anything that is relevant. Like the bird that's outside my window will not be there tomorrow. Like I know that
Mhm.
for a fact that a squirrel won't, like I see one squirrel. Oh, my joy has been a squirrel though. There's a squirrel outside, and it runs from one branch to the other, and it has been continuous. So when I find these continuous links, they really brighten my day for the fact. But it's been a not a very peaceful state of mind for this
Mm.
entire being, so that the mind that is nature and the nature that is mind is not talking to each other very well so far. It's
Mm.
something that I wanted to say.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. I mean, I've spent almost all both of the lockdowns here in Paris, in my apartment in the city, and Paris is also very dense city. It's totally different from Mumbai, obviously, but yeah, I also have this yearning for just leaving the city and heading out and walk over a field or inside a forest, which isn't a city park with like 100,000 joggers passing you. And
Yeah, I don't mind that either, but they shut those down also. And they won't open the parks, but they will open the parks. That's the sad part about it. But
the parks are closed.
parks are shut, but the bars are open.
Oh yeah, yeah. The parks were closed here during the first lockdown, but they left them open for the second one, which changes a lot. It's already a little bit better. You can at least like
The parks are
get your you can at least get your shoes dirty. That helps. Yeah.
I give it to what Jaya said. Like, there's so much of people in my dreams. Like, I don't know where they come from. Like, and the things they do, they shouldn't be doing. They're just there, and they're just ghosts of everyone. They're almost like apparitions that I see. And it's like, did this really happen? I'm mostly like using my mind as a video player when I go to sleep, and I'm just replaying
Uh-huh.
that has happened in like further detail, and trying to remember things, and those are becoming my dreams. I'm controlling my dreams. That's all that I'm doing. Trying to like dream what I want to dream at a certain point.
Yeah.
Let me reach
Well,
back.
it's funny that you mentioned the word replay, which is maybe one of the words I've come across or which caught my attention the most, like studying on all the scientific research on dreams. Because if you want in scientific literature, when scientists talk about dreams, many or most of the time they will use the word neuronal replay. So it's really like what you just mentioned, like entering this sort of internal video game of your mind, which becomes like a canvas, like all the we were talking about patterns earlier, like how patterns in the world and in the mind can like interact. And I think the way, like from what I took away from scientific literature, and we can look at a few examples in a second, is how patterns get formed in our mind through our lives and experiences and sensory impressions. And then when you sleep, you reactivate those patterns. You like relive them, and you have like these neuronal connections that are there that are more active than others, and then you like just like randomly reactivate them, and you replay like things things you do. I want to show you this video if I find it. Let me try to dig through my notes here about a dreaming mouse. So okay, let me try share my screen. This. Do you see this? Do you see a video?
Oh yes, it's coming.
Okay, great. So this is data recorded in the brain of a mouse. And what you see here, the red dot, is where the mouse actually is in its cage. And the black and gray area is the neurons that get activated in the mouse's brain that are related to various locations. So you can see how most of the time its brain, its mental space, is overlaps with its physical location, the red dot. But every now and then you see these like flickering thoughts, really, where it almost seems to be thinking of another spot in the cage. Like, oops, there we had a little flicker, right? And sometimes I wonder if it like precedes where the mouse is going. It kind of looks like it right now. That see it like it flickered up in the top left corner for a second. I don't know how good the video resolution is over there, but it flickers like in another location, and then slowly the mouse will go there. So it's almost as if though it like activates this little thought that corresponds to that location, and then it will go there. It's like thinks, oh, I want to go there, and then you see how the red dot slowly moves there. And what they did in this lab is really quite crazy, because I mean, already they just like decode the spatial thoughts of the mouse. So this is technically, oops, am I back? Yes. So this is technically related to a special group of neurons called place cells that represent like physical locations we move around in. So when we think of a place we lived at, and you close your eyes and you visualize that place. Let's say, for example, where the house you grew up in. So when you close your eyes, you can remember like the layout of the place, how you walk around, the stairs, the corridors, the kitchen, the bedroom, and so on. You can really re-visualize that space, and like almost like an avatar move around in that mental space. And you can measure that and see that in these place cells. And so they use this way of looking into a mouse's brain, really, and they did that whilst the mouse was sleeping. I don't have the video of that, but basically what happens is that when the mouse is asleep, every now and then it will relive stuff it did during the day, moving around in the cage. So suddenly these place cells get activated, and then you can see what place in the cage it is actually thinking of. And to go further, then these scientists, they connected this observation with another technique using optogenetics, where using light, you can stimulate certain parts of the brain. So in this case, they would stimulate an area of the mouse's brain that is responsible for pleasure. This has been studied for a long time in rats and mice also, where this area, when you stimulate it, it's like when you get food or have sex or take cocaine or I don't know what, it just like releases this feeling of pleasure. And they even installed, there was like this experiment where they installed a button in the cage where the mouse could choose between pushing the button that releases this pleasure center, stimulates the pleasure center, or that gives them food. And the animals would actually prefer just getting the pleasure without the food, and some of them would let themselves die just like because they would have enough with the pleasure. And what then they did in this experiment was to associate a place of a location in the cage, which they measured whenever the mouse in its dream would think of that specific location in the cage, they would just stimulate the pleasure center a little bit. So whenever it would think of the top left corner in the cage, it would get just a little pleasure from that thought. And over a few nights, I don't remember the exact number of experiments they did and the duration, but after a while, the mouse would associate pleasure with that location. And then during the day, the mouse would actually spend much more time in that space. So what they effectively did was to sort of implant an artificial memory, I would say, through the dream of the mouse.
It's crazy.
It is, no, and it's also worrying somehow. I mean, like when I was in the lab talking to the guys who did it, and like the first idea that came to mind was like, wow, it's like advertisement.
Yeah.
Guys, sorry, we will have to end the meeting. So if anyone wants to go around the room and like have like a minute to each, and like if you want to share your thoughts, we can do that. We are ending the meeting soon, right after.
Oh sure, yeah. Oh wow, I was unaware of the. I thought we had 1 hour. It's 45 minutes, is it? Okay.
I think originally we were thinking about 1 hour, but then we thought, oh, maybe what if 1 hour is too long, and what's gonna happen?
Oh no, damn! I should have read the notes probably. Well, that's okay. Maybe just before we do a quick round to wrap it up, another quick look at brain decoding. I think the mouse example was already a good example to give you an idea of this, but this is actually a very old experiment. It's like more than 10 years old, I think. Let me share the screen again. So what you see here to the left is, do you see this? Yeah. To the left, you have the presented clip a person sees, and to the right, you have the reconstruction of that clip from the person's brain. So this was 2011, so almost 10 years ago. And maybe we can share. I can share some more links and stuff over the chat or in the next conversation. But I mean, more of this has been done. Oops, sorry. Also with people who are sleeping, and also with birds. So that's where the question comes in: what do birds dream of? And similar studies have been done with birds, because birds represent their songs sort of like spatial maps in their brains, like we were talking about with the mice. And right now, people are trying to map out these spaces and measure how these trajectories happen in the bird's brain when it is singing. Here's another picture of that.
Robin, what do the colors signify in the reproduced image?
In the one you're seeing right now?
No, the one
in the
before.
previous one. So
yeah.
The way that is done is that you get just raw data from the brain. That's just bioelectrical triggers, basically. And what you do is, whilst the person is awake and sees images, you know what image you show, and you try to map the image that is being presented to the brain activity. And that's done with like deep learning tools or neural networks that like take the image, and then they take the data you get from the brain, and they make the connection between the two. They like see like this brain activation corresponds to this image, and they will do this with thousands of images to build up a database of like brain activation image, and then they will just go let the person go wild in their thoughts, and they will capture all the brain activity, and then in the database they will look like, oh, what image does that correspond to, and then they will try to like overlap all the possible images that brain activity will correspond to. So that's how they construct the image. And yeah, I'm sorry we're already running out of time, but I think it's interesting to note here how this how dreams that are so something interior, something personal, like so related to our mental life, also have this physical manifestation in the brain, and how we try to start to decode it, and how the brain and thoughts can get decoded. And for me, this opens a wider question. It's actually not so much about how thoughts can be something physical in the world, but how the world could be also just full of thoughts. And maybe we could close on this idea of not us like and our thoughts being physical, but maybe the world being like capable of thought. And like you were saying, you were missing nature and the plants outside. And I think this idea of us controlling this nature also maybe is a way of controlling those thoughts of the forests and the birds around us. And maybe there's this correspondence there that we can seek and try to understand and get in conversation with.
Like blurring the lines between the internal and the external world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there should be no lines there.
Yeah, I don't think there are either.
Well, this was short.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robin. It was great.
Thank you, guys.
Short but great. Yeah.
Yeah. to be continued, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, we are just starting, sort of. I feel like.
Feels like we just started.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, we're all in one email group, right? Maybe you
That's
could
right.
send us some links there.
Actually,
we
yeah,
read
I'd happy to do that. Yeah, I just noticed I didn't want to over prepare, and I totally over prepared. I have like so many little texts and things I wanted to read. There was this this text from Eduardo Kohn, anthropologist who spent a lot of time in the Amazonian rainforest, and the relation people have there to their dreams is really interesting, because dreams are part of the world, and the lines totally are totally blurred there. It's both worlds coexist and are part of the same world. Dreams are part of the world. I think that's maybe one thing we can take away from this. And in his book that's called How Forests Think, which is a really awesome book, I would recommend it to all of you. And I think there's even a room that carries that title. There's this little excerpt. I'm going to read this maybe to end this. And it says, "I've come to wonder how much my dream was ever really my own. For a moment, perhaps, my thinking became one with how the forest thinks. Perhaps, like Levi-Strauss's myths, there is indeed something about such dreams which think in men, unbeknownst to them. Dreaming may well be, then, a sort of thought run wild, a human form of thinking that goes well beyond the human, and therefore one that is central to an anthropology beyond the human. Dreaming is a sort of pensée sauvage, a form of thinking unfettered from its own intentions, and therefore susceptible to the play of forms in which it has become immersed, which in my case, and that of the Avila Runa, the people he was living with in the forest, is one that gets caught up and amplified in the multi-species, memory-laden wilderness of an Amazon forest." I really love that little passage. And I think it encapsulates a lot of the ideas we were discussing. So thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
What's happening next? I think there's another chat now.
Yes, Robin, please stay back. I would request everyone else, if you can leave the meeting, that would be best.
Bye.
All right, goodbye. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Let's talk again soon.
Yeah, let's talk again soon. Let's continue. So much.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to know more about your stuff too.
Yes. We're in the email, right? We can connect there.
We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great. Okay. I have 3 questions for you, and then I will be sending you another link for the next panel.
All right.
Would you want me to write the questions on the chat, or would you want me to ask them? Which one would you prefer?
No, shoot. Just ask them, yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, do you think this research amounts to cruelty even though understanding other creature minds is also important?
Yeah, I think there's something really cruel about it. I think there's something cruel about like keeping animals in cages and controlling them. There's always this power. I mean, be it insects, animals, we're talking about plants in the city and our relationship to nature. I think there's something extremely dominant and cruel in that. I mean, there's all huge guidelines of how research is conducted and how research has to be ethical, and those are of course all being followed, but obviously it raises the question of how we interact with the world. Yeah, of course, it's there's a lot of cruelty involved in it, and sometimes I think we ourselves, we produce this cruelty too. I think it's easy to say, oh, scientists are cruel, and ignore our many ways and our ways of life we enjoy, and the cruelty they imply in them being possible. I don't have an answer. I mean, I work a lot with living animals and organisms, and for me, I always try to do this coming from mutual respect and in a process of understanding. As I said, for me, the world is a world of thoughts and thinking beings and signs and symbols. And I think there's many languages out there which I want to hear and maybe even understand a little bit. So I think there's a lot to be learned. I think we should strive for some form of communication. And I think we have to understand cruelty. We have to become aware of it in order to be able to fight it and to avoid it. And I don't blame scientists. And I mean, of course, there are things I find horrible and which have to stop. But for me, in my practice, this is also something I want to raise as a question. The first example I gave with the mosquitoes, there's something very cruel about it because the mosquitoes are attached to a microphone, to a wire, and so they fly in place and they're in this metal structure, and they're caught. Many of them actually die after a while because they're in this contraption, and that is definitely cruel. And it's, I think, the only piece where that is as cruel. It's one of the first pieces I did. I wouldn't do pieces this way again today, I think. But in a way, what works with this piece is that when people come in and they see it, they identify with the mosquito and they become aware of the feeling of the mosquito. They ask, oh, how is this mosquito doing? And I mean, mosquitoes kill over 1 million people every year. I think the organism or the animal that kills the most humans every year. They're a huge pest. A lot of people suffer and die from mosquitoes. And to have people identify with the insect and worry about it is also a way to make them become aware of other beings' thoughts and feelings. So
that brings me to my next question, which is, have you thought of or tried doing the same with animal dreams? Can the same research apply there? Like, do animals?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. So I'm working with ornithology labs mostly about bird song, and we're trying to decode the bird song. So we're already, I mean, they're already looking at how these songs get encoded in the brain and how they're related to the behavior of the bird. And there is data of sleeping birds and their brain activity as it was measured, and they noticed that birds activate the same regions in their brain when they're asleep as the ones they activate when they sing every now and then. So this leads us to believe that indeed birds dream of their songs when they sleep. And now the last step we're actively working on now is to create this decoding machine between the sleeping bird's brain activity and the actual sounds that they would produce when they're awake, so we can listen to those dreams now.
That's so cool. Oh my God. That I can't forget that line, birds dream of their songs when they sleep. Like,
Mm.
I'm gonna think about that. Okay, I have one
Mm.
last question since we are very short on time.
Yeah.
Have you faced any trouble with animal rights activists while you're doing your work?
I've had emails and people coming to me when exhibitions were shown. Actually, just this one mosquito installation. So sometimes people will come and say, "I pray for your soul," which was kind of nice. But most of the time, people ask this question. They don't. Rarely people come and say, "I'm shocked by this." And they ask, aren't other people complaining about it? Usually they sort of externalize the worry.
So,
Yeah.
of it rather than a real worry, do you feel that?
Yeah, most of the time people just ask, yeah, don't other people worry about this? They don't refer to themselves as being as worrying about it. But I think, as I said earlier, like the main point in this installation is to create this sort of dialogue and to identify with the insect. But there is something violent about it, because it just, even though you try to create this dialogue, you still use it, and there's clearly this domination of the insect there. So what I'm doing now, since a few months ago, a scientist from the lab who discovered this behavior of mosquitoes, how they tune into each other, contacted me, because now they're working with swarms, and they're looking how swarms of mosquitoes interact with each other and how they interact through sound with each other. And we're now trying to come up with a setup where we can communicate with mosquitoes and hear their sound and have them tune in as a free-flying swarm. And for me, then this becomes interesting again, because the way the piece is now, I'm not sure I want to show it again, to be honest. But if we can come up with a way where we can have them free-flying and identify with them again and enter in this sort of communication, I think then we can start showing the piece again.
That'd be so cool. I think that just would change everything. Thank you so much, Robin, for this conversation. It was beautiful.
Thank you, Sumi. It was great.